One thing that turns women on more than sex, backed by science: psychology tricks. Love doesn't bind people together, understanding does. You went on the date, you showed up strong. The conversation was easy, the attraction felt real, the night ended well, and then nothing. No message, no follow up, no explanation. That silence hits harder than rejection because you thought you did everything right. Here's the truth most men never hear: sex doesn't create attachment, it only creates access. A woman can enjoy sex, feel chemistry, and still wake up the next day with zero emotional pull toward you. That doesn't mean you failed as a man. It means something deeper never switched on. Attraction wasn't the issue, connection was. And no, this has nothing to do with romance, money, looks, or trying harder. There is a specific psychological trigger in the female brain that determines whether a woman moves toward a man or slowly detaches after intimacy. When that trigger is activated, she doesn't just desire you, her nervous system starts to associate safety, direction, and emotional grounding with your presence. That's bonding, and it's biological, not poetic. Sex stimulates the body, but emotional framing shapes memory, attachment, and future desire. Most men lose women not because they lack attraction, but because they lose emotional frame after intimacy, becoming reactive, seeking validation, or unconsciously handing over control. This isn't about manipulation, it's about leadership. When a man can stay centered, grounded, and emotionally steady without chasing or withdrawing, he creates something far more powerful than lust: psychological gravity. That's what keeps a woman thinking about you after she leaves. That's what brings her back. If you want understanding instead of illusions, clarity instead of confusion, and leverage instead of guessing, you're in the right place. Now let's break down what's actually happening beneath the surface and why this changes everything. 1. The lie men are taught about attraction. You were taught a very specific lie about attraction, and it slipped into your life so quietly that you never questioned it. Not directly, not in clear words, but through movies, social media, dating advice, and conversations with other men who were just as confused as you. The message was always the same: just dress differently, look better, make more money, be confident, be impressive, stack enough of those traits together, and a woman will stay. That is the story most men between 35 and 70 were handed, and many followed it faithfully. You worked on your appearance, you improved your career, you sharpened your social skills, you learned what you were told were psychology tricks. You studied female psychology like it was a puzzle to solve. You believed this was how to fall in love and keep it. But here's the part no one says out loud, and it matters more than anything. Most men who get left behind were not unattractive. They were not awkward. They did not fail in intimacy. They did not ruin anything obvious. In fact, many of them did everything right on paper. They got the date, they felt the chemistry, they had the connection, they had the sex, and then they got nothing. The silence, the distance, the slow fade that hurts more than rejection. Because getting a woman's body has never been the real challenge. Keeping a place in her emotional world is where most men lose their footing, and they don't even see it happening until it hurts. This is where the lie does the most damage. Men are trained to chase attraction, but not to sustain connection. They are taught how to spark interest, not how to remain emotionally relevant. Most popular psychology tricks focus on reactions, not bonds. They teach how to impress, not how to be felt. They teach surface confidence, not emotional presence. And female psychology does not work like a checklist. It works like a living system, a system that responds to safety, consistency, emotional attunement, and presence over time. Not grand gestures, not constant excitement, not endless performance. Don't confuse attraction with attachment. Don't confuse intensity with intimacy. Don't confuse being chosen once with being chosen again. That distinction changes everything. Science and psychology both show this clearly. Long-term attraction grows when a woman feels emotionally safe, psychologically understood, and consistently met. Not managed, not analyzed, met. When she doesn't have to guard herself, when she doesn't have to regulate your emotions, when your presence feels steady instead of unpredictable. That is the thing that turns women on more than sex. Not the act itself, but the emotional state that surrounds it, the ability to relax, to trust, to feel seen without pressure. Studies on attachment, bonding, and emotional regulation consistently show that desire deepens when emotional safety increases. Oxytocin, trust, and connection are not opposites of attraction. They are amplifiers of it. And this is where so many men get confused. They escalate physically when emotional alignment is missing. They chase novelty when consistency is required. They add new tactics when what's missing is presence. Don't chase harder. Don't perform louder. Don't stack more achievements hoping one will finally make her stay. Be present instead. Be curious instead. Be consistent instead. Consistency is not boring. It is grounding. And grounding allows desire to grow. Female psychology responds deeply to emotional reliability paired with quiet confidence. Not rigidity, not control. Reliability. This does not mean becoming passive or predictable. It means becoming emotionally fluent, knowing when to lead and when to listen, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to create excitement and when to create calm. Calm is underrated. Calm is magnetic. Many men repeat the same painful pattern for years. Strong beginning, intense connection, sudden distance. They keep asking, "What did I do wrong?" When the real question is, "What emotional experience did I create over time?" Once you see this, everything shifts. You stop asking, "How do I make her want me?" You start asking, "How do I show up in a way that makes emotional closeness feel natural?" That question changes behavior without force. It slows you down. It sharpens your awareness. It transforms shallow psychology tricks into genuine understanding. It reframes female psychology from something to be hacked into something to be respected. And respect, expressed quietly and consistently, is deeply attractive, especially to women who have seen enough performance to last a lifetime. If you truly want to understand how to fall in love in a way that lasts, stop focusing on being impressive. Focus on being emotionally available without being needy, grounded without being rigid, confident without performing, present without expectation. This is not flashy advice, but it is real. It is backed by psychology. It aligns with how human bonding actually works. That is why some men seem effortlessly magnetic. They are not chasing attraction. They are creating a space where attraction feels safe to stay. And once you understand that, the confusion lifts. The patterns make sense. The lie dissolves. Because connection is not earned through accumulation. It is sustained through emotional coherence. And that is the one thing that turns women on more than sex. 2. Why women walk away after sex. Women don't walk away because the sex was bad. That idea is comforting, but it's wrong. They walk away because nothing lingered after it was over. No imprint, no emotional echo, no quiet pull that brings her back to you when you're not in the room. You can excite her for a night and still be forgettable by morning. That is the brutal distinction most men never see until it happens to them. Attraction isn't measured by how intense the moment was. It's measured by what remains when the moment ends. That is where the real test lives. Most men focus on the spark and ignore the afterglow. They bring energy, charm, and effort into the moment, then disappear emotionally once it passes. And when nothing remains, she moves on without drama. Not because she's cold, because her nervous system has no reason to return. Don't mistake physical closeness for emotional impact. They are not the same thing. Physical closeness excites the body. Emotional impact anchors the memory. One fades quickly, the other lingers. When nothing lingers, there is no pull strong enough to compete with her independence, her options, her full life. So she doesn't stay, she doesn't chase, she doesn't explain, she simply keeps going. That is where most men lose ground without realizing it. They think attraction is about doing more intensity, more performance, more effort in the moment. But attraction deepens through what you leave behind, not what you show off up front. Science backs this up. Emotional imprinting happens when someone feels regulated, understood, and emotionally held, even briefly. Not entertained, not overwhelmed. Held. Be honest with yourself here. Many men can excite a woman. Fewer men can settle her nervous system while keeping her interest alive. That balance matters. It is the difference between being a passing experience and becoming a reference point. That is what a high-value man understands intuitively. He doesn't rush the moment. He shapes the emotional space around it. Don't rush to impress. Be intentional instead. Don't chase intensity. Create resonance. That is how you attract women without forcing anything. Resonance means she feels different after being with you. Calmer, clearer, more herself. That feeling stays when you're gone, and that feeling is rare. Most men leave no emotional residue behind. They exit the moment cleanly, like nothing happened. No emotional signal strong enough to echo. No sense of continuity. So her system resets. When it resets, desire fades. Not out of judgment, out of biology and psychology doing exactly what they're designed to do. You must understand this. Female attraction is not just about stimulation, it is about contrast. If being with you doesn't feel meaningfully different from being alone, she has no reason to return. That difference doesn't come from effort. It comes from presence, from grounded masculine energy that doesn't seek approval and doesn't vanish once the moment is over. Masculine energy, when it's healthy, creates structure and safety without pressure. It doesn't grab, it doesn't rush, it doesn't disappear emotionally. It remains steady. That steadiness allows her to relax. Relaxation allows attraction to deepen. That is how to attract women in a way that lasts beyond the first night. Don't confuse independence with disinterest. Many women are deeply independent. That doesn't mean they don't want connection. It means the connection has to add something real. Emotional depth, psychological safety, a sense of being met. If you don't leave that behind, she won't argue with herself. She'll simply move forward. This is why some men are remembered long after the moment ends, and others are forgotten just as quickly. The difference is not looks, not money, not technique. It's emotional gravity, the ability to create a subtle pull that doesn't rely on effort. That gravity is built through consistency, calm confidence, and emotional awareness. Be the man whose presence slows things down internally for her. Be the man who doesn't need to escalate to feel secure. Be the man who understands that attraction grows in the space between moments, not just inside them. That is how a high-value man operates. Quietly, intentionally, without forcing outcomes. Psychology explains this clearly. The brain attaches meaning to emotional states, not just events. If the emotional state you create feels safe, alive, and grounded, the brain tags you as significant. That tag doesn't fade overnight. That is why some connections linger even without constant contact. Don't leave the moment abruptly, emotionally, or psychologically. Stay present. Let the experience land. Let silence exist without filling it. Let her feel the shift. That is where memory forms. That is where attraction roots itself. You must stop trying to be unforgettable in the moment and start being unforgettable afterward. That shift changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you listen, how you exit. It changes how women remember you. This is not about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature. When you understand it, you stop chasing reactions and start creating experiences that resonate. That is real confidence. That is masculine energy expressed with maturity. And that is how you attract women without pressure, games, or explanation. Women don't walk away because sex was bad. They walk away because nothing stayed with them once it was over. When something stays, they return naturally, not because they have to, because they want to. If this hit home, comment this right now. I leave a presence that lingers. Like the video, subscribe for more unshakable, science-backed wisdom, and remember this: attraction isn't about intensity, it's about what remains when you're gone. 3. Stimulation versus impact. Here is the truth most men are never told, and it is backed by psychology, neuroscience, and Old Stoic wisdom. Stimulation is not what bonds a woman to you. Impact is. Confusing the two is why so many men feel blindsided when a woman walks away, even after passion, laughter, attraction, and chemistry were clearly present. Stimulation excites the nervous system. Impact settles into memory, identity, and emotional safety. Most men assume that because sparks flew, something meaningful anchored. That assumption is wrong. Desire does not equal attachment. Pleasure does not create loyalty. Excitement does not guarantee connection. A woman can want you and still feel nothing tying her to you. She can enjoy you and still feel safer leaving than staying. That is why this experience feels so confusing from the male side. You felt something happen. She didn't feel something settle. And that difference changes everything. Science explains this clearly. The human brain does not bond through intensity alone. It bonds through consistency, predictability, and emotional regulation. Attachment theory shows that what creates lasting attraction is not novelty, but how calm and grounded a person feels in your presence. She didn't leave because you weren't exciting. She left because nothing stayed with her after you were gone. Nothing reorganized her inner world. Nothing made her future feel clearer with you in it. Marcus Aurelius captured this centuries ago when he wrote, "Be steady, for it is consistency that builds trust." Carl Jung echoed the same truth when he observed that people are influenced not by what you do once, but by who you are repeatedly. This is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern relationships. Impact is quiet. Impact is cumulative. Impact grows over time. In modern life, stimulation is everywhere. Endless options, endless attention, endless novelty. What is rare is emotional gravity, a man whose presence calms instead of agitates, a man whose words match his actions, a man who does not spike emotionally and disappear. This is why Stoicism win is not about suppressing emotion. It is about mastering your inner state so others feel safe around you. People do not attach to excitement. They attach to stability that still feels alive. They attach to clarity. They attach to a man who leads himself first. William James said it best. The deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. Appreciation grows from reliability, not from spectacle. Real impact looks practical. You slow down instead of rushing intimacy. You stay grounded when emotions rise. You communicate clearly without over-explaining. You hold your standards calmly. You let consistency do the work. This requires discipline. This requires an iron mind, because when you are calm under pressure, steady in uncertainty, and grounded in who you become memorable in a way excitement alone never achieves. Repeat this until it locks in. Stimulation opens the door. Impact makes her stay. Stimulation excites. Impact anchors. Stimulation is a spark. Impact is gravity. Gravity always wins over time. This is Stoicism win in action. Men who truly master life understand this. They stop chasing reactions. They start building resonance. They stop performing. They start leading. They focus less on being unforgettable in the moment and more on being irreplaceable in memory. When you walk away and she feels calmer, stronger, and more centered than before, you didn't just attract her. You affected her. That is real power. Quiet, controlled, enduring, built with iron mind discipline, rooted in old Stoic wisdom, and proven again and again in real life where clarity beats confusion, depth beats drama, and impact always outlasts stimulation. 4. Dopamine versus oxytocin. At some point, if you've dated long enough, you start noticing a strange and frustrating pattern. The spark can feel electric. The chemistry can feel undeniable. The connection can feel intense and meaningful. And yet it fades faster than it arrived. To understand why excitement disappears while attachment quietly lingers, you must stop thinking in poetry and start thinking in biology. This isn't about romance. It's about how the brain is wired. Most of what men call attraction is powered by dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. Dopamine is the rush, the thrill, the surge that comes from novelty, flirting, anticipation, sexual tension, and sex itself. Dopamine sharpens focus. It accelerates the heartbeat. It creates that intoxicating feeling of, this matters right now. But here's the part most men never hear. Dopamine is built for pursuit, not connection. It motivates, it pushes, it chases, and then it moves on once the stimulus is gone. high, then crash. Intense, then empty. That is why lust burns hot, but rarely lasts. Dopamine doesn't bond people, it bonds moments. Once the moment passes, the body looks for the next hit, not the same person. So don't be confused when a night that felt powerful doesn't lead to a lasting pull. Dopamine never promised that outcome. It was never designed to. This is where female psychology works on a different frequency than most men expect. What creates attachment in a woman is not the spike. It's the settling, not the chase, but the release. That's where oxytocin enters. Oxytocin is released when a woman feels emotionally safe, not impressed, not evaluated, not pressured, safe. When her nervous system relaxes instead of staying alert, when she feels seen instead of assessed, understood instead of managed. Oxytocin doesn't shout, it whispers, it doesn't excite, it reassures. And unlike dopamine, it doesn't fade quickly. It lingers, it anchors. It teaches the body who feels familiar, calming, and grounding. This is why one thing turns women on more than sex itself, and science backs this up. Emotional safety activates oxytocin. Oxytocin is the foundation of trust, bonding, and long-term attraction. Be careful here. This doesn't mean being passive or dull. It means being regulated, present, and steady. It means your energy says, you can exhale here, not, you need to perform here. When oxytocin is activated, her body starts associating you with relief, with comfort, with balance, not just excitement, but restoration. And that association runs deeper than conscious thought. Her body remembers you even when her mind is busy elsewhere. This is where psychology tricks are often misunderstood. Real influence is not manipulation. It's understanding how the nervous system responds. How to fall in love is not a script. It's a state. That state is created when a woman feels she doesn't need armor around you, when her guard lowers naturally, when conversation feels easy instead of strategic, when silence doesn't feel awkward, but safe. Don't underestimate how rare that is. Many men focus on being impressive, clever, or intense. But intensity alone keeps the nervous system alert, not bonded. Don't chase constant stimulation. Don't confuse excitement with attachment. Be someone whose presence regulates rather than overwhelms. That is the shift that changes everything. When oxytocin is present, attraction stops being a decision and starts being a bodily preference. This is why female psychology responds so strongly to consistency, emotional clarity, and calm confidence, not dramatic gestures alone. Yes, sex matters, chemistry matters, but without oxytocin, it remains a memory, not a magnet. If you want to understand how to fall in love in a way that lasts, you must respect this difference. Dopamine gets attention, oxytocin gets return visits, dopamine opens the door. Oxytocin makes her stay. The smartest psychology tricks aren't tricks at all. They are awareness. They are knowing when to slow down, when to listen, when to let comfort do the work excitement can't finish. Because once her system links you with safety, she doesn't just think about you, she feels better around you, and that feeling is powerful, quiet, and deeply persuasive. It explains why some men are unforgettable without ever being flashy. Their presence doesn't spike the system, it settles it. And that is where real attachment begins. If this opened your eyes, don't just scroll on. Like the video, subscribe for more science-backed psychology tricks, and drop this sentence in the comments to lock it in and engage with the channel. Comment to remember. Attraction fades, but emotional safety makes her stay. 5. Why safety creates bonding. This is why a woman can walk away from incredible sex without looking back and still find herself thinking about a man who never tried to impress her. That contrast confuses many men. It shouldn't. One gave her dopamine, the other gave her oxytocin. Dopamine excites her. Oxytocin imprints you. And imprinting is not a conscious choice. It doesn't happen through logic or decision-making. It happens beneath thought, beneath language, beneath intention. Her nervous system makes the call long before her mind finds the words to explain it. That is the part most men never learn. They try to reason with attraction, But attraction is not a debate. It's a biological response. You must understand that if you want to attract women in a way that actually lasts, when men say, "I don't understand, the chemistry was insane," they are almost always describing dopamine, the rush, the excitement, the intensity, the late night energy. And when women say, "I don't know why, I just feel comfortable with him," they are describing oxytocin. One burns bright and fast. The other settles in quietly and reshapes attachment. One thrills the moment. The other rewires memory. That difference explains years of confusion, mixed signals, and missed connections. Once you see it clearly, the mystery disappears. Excitement alone never makes a woman stay. Safety makes her bond. That is not a theory. That is biology. Dopamine is powerful, but it is impatient. It lives on novelty. It craves stimulation. It loves the chase. It rewards intensity. But it does not create roots. Dopamine asks, "What's next?" Oxytocin asks, "Who feels right?" And those questions lead to very different outcomes. A man who relies only on excitement may attract women easily, but he struggles to keep them emotionally engaged. A high-value man understands that attraction without bonding is unstable. Don't confuse attention with attachment. Be aware of what you are actually creating. That awareness alone separates men who repeat the same cycle from men who evolve. Oxytocin is released when a woman feels emotionally safe. Not bored, not unimpressed. Safe. When her nervous system relaxes instead of staying alert. When she feels seen instead of measured. When she feels accepted instead of evaluated. Oxytocin doesn't spike the way dopamine does. It settles, it calms, it grounds. And that calm is deeply attractive, even if it doesn't feel dramatic in the moment. That is why some men underestimate their impact. They think they didn't do enough. In reality, they did something rare. They allowed her body to rest. That is not passive. That is powerful masculine energy. Be careful here. Emotional safety does not mean being dull or overly agreeable. It means being steady. It means being present. It means your words and actions align. It means she doesn't feel the need to guard herself around you. Don't rush connection. Don't push intensity. Be consistent. Be clear. Be calm. That consistency is what allows oxytocin to do its work. When that hormone is activated, her body begins to associate you with comfort, relief, and regulation. Not just attraction, but balance. And balance is magnetic. This is where many so-called psychology tricks fail. They focus on surface behaviors instead of internal states. Real influence does not come from clever lines. It comes from how you make someone feel in your presence over time. How to attract women is not about memorizing tactics. It is about becoming someone whose presence lowers tension instead of raising it. A man who understands this moves differently. He speaks differently. He listens without rushing. He doesn't try to win approval. He allows connection to unfold. That is quiet confidence. That is mature masculine energy. A high-value man knows that bonding is not forced. It is invited. He doesn't chase reactions. He creates space. He doesn't overwhelm with intensity. He offers stability. That stability allows a woman's nervous system to register him as safe. Once that happens, attachment begins forming naturally. She doesn't just like him. Her body remembers him, and the body remembers what the mind tries to ignore. That memory is why she thinks about him later. That memory is why she compares others to him. That memory is why attraction deepens instead of fading. So don't be surprised when excitement alone doesn't lead anywhere. That outcome was predictable. Be someone who understands the difference between stimulation and imprinting. Be someone who values emotional safety as much as chemistry. That is how you attract women without exhausting yourself. That is how you build connection without performance. That is how masculine energy matures into something steady, grounded, and deeply appealing. You must stop chasing sparks and start building warmth, because sparks burn out. Warmth stays. 6. Ghosting and the absence of attachment. Here's the truth. Most men learn the hard way, and once you see it, you never unsee it. The one thing that turns women on more than sex is emotional safety wrapped in grounded presence, and science backs this up, while old Stoic wisdom has been whispering it for centuries. You felt the sting of a night that seemed perfect, followed by silence. The mistake is assuming pleasure equals connection, when in reality pleasure is a spark and connection is a structure. Sex excites the body, meaning anchors the mind. Without an anchor, the nervous system drifts away the moment stimulation fades. That's why ghosting isn't rejection, it's the absence of attachment. Psychology confirms this. Dopamine spikes quickly and disappears just as fast. Oxytocin and real bonding only grow through trust, consistency, and emotional coherence. Viktor Frankl said, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure." That single line explains modern dating better than any app ever could. In a world of endless options, quick intimacy is cheap, calm strength is rare, and rarity creates desire. Women don't just respond to how you make them feel in the moment. They respond to how you regulate yourself over time. They sense your emotional steadiness. They feel whether your presence is safe once excitement drops. This is where most men fail. They overinvest after sex. They replay moments. They chase reassurance. Without realizing it, they signal instability. The better move is silence without withdrawal, interest without need, warmth without urgency. This balance is taught in Old Stoic wisdom. Self-command creates attraction because it communicates abundance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Lived correctly, that sentence creates emotional containment, the ability to remain centered regardless of outcome. That quality is deeply attractive. It tells her nervous system you are not a risk, not chaos, not a question mark. This isn't manipulation, it's alignment. People bond to what feels predictable and emotionally intelligent. When sex happens without that foundation, the body enjoys it, but the mind moves on, especially in modern life, where stimulation is endless and attention is fragmented. Men between 35 and 70 already know this pattern. Chasing pleasure alone leads to diminishing returns in work, in health, in relationships. Dating is no different. The instruction is simple and decisive. Stop trying to be memorable through intensity. Start being unforgettable through steadiness. Intensity impresses, stability imprints. Science shows women are drawn long-term to men with secure attachment traits, emotional regulation, and purpose. Purpose matters. When your life is full, your energy is calm. Calm is seductive. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom from emotional reactivity separates boys from men in today's dating world. When you build an iron mind, you stop needing outcomes to feel whole. And paradoxically, that wholeness becomes magnetic. No one wants to carry emotional weight that isn't theirs, especially not after intimacy. The victory is internal, a stoicism win that pays dividends everywhere. The man who enjoys a night fully without clinging the next morning signals confidence without saying a word. Modern advice tells men to text faster and explain feelings. Psychology shows overcommunication after sex often kills attraction by collapsing polarity. Grounded silence allows curiosity to grow. This isn't playing games. This is living correctly. Build your body, sharpen your mind, lead a life that doesn't pause for validation. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Embodiment creates emotional gravity. When a woman senses your happiness doesn't depend on her response, her system relaxes, interest deepens, attachment has space to grow. This is where Old Stoic wisdom meets neuroscience. Discipline becomes attractive, self-mastery becomes intimacy. This is why Stoicism win is not just a mindset, but a lifestyle. Build your iron mind, accept impermanence, enjoy moments fully, let outcomes unfold without grasping. Grasping kills desire. Calm confidence fuels it. Be present during intimacy. Be complete afterward. Let your life speak louder than your messages. Repeat this pattern and things change. Fewer disappearances, deeper connections, more respect, not because you demanded it, because you earned it through self-command. In a culture addicted to stimulation, the man who offers meaning stands out. The man who offers steadiness stays remembered. This is how you win quietly. This is Stoicism win in real life. This is how an iron mind turns fleeting moments into lasting bonds. If you made it this far, you already understand what most men miss. Sex alone doesn't create attachment. Presence does, meaning does, emotional grounding does. If you're done confusing chemistry with connection and ready to become the kind of man people don't drift away from, prove it to yourself. Comment this below. I am the anchor, not the spark. 7. Emotional safety is not weakness. Emotional safety is not weakness. And if that phrase still makes you tense, pause and listen. This is where many men quietly lose ground without realizing it. They hear the word safe and instantly imagine dull, predictable, overly agreeable, the kind of nice that drains attraction. So they resist it. They push against it. But that reaction completely misses the point. Emotional safety is not about softness. It is about steadiness. A man who creates emotional safety does not chase approval. He does not rush to explain himself. He does not perform confidence like a costume. He does not try to convince anyone of his value. He knows where he stands. And that inner alignment shows up in his voice, his timing, his posture, and his choices. That is where the real psychology tricks begin. Because a woman's nervous system is always scanning for consistency, not perfection. When she senses that a man is grounded, that he does not wobble with every emotional shift, her body responds before her mind does. Her breath slows, her shoulders drop, her defenses soften. This is not romance talk. This is biology meeting psychology. Calm invites closeness. Stability invites trust. And trust is a core pillar of female psychology. Do not confuse this with passivity. Do not mistake restraint for lack of desire. Do not assume intensity must come from pressure. Emotional safety is not about saying yes to everything or shrinking yourself to be liked. That is misunderstanding the game. That is noise. Steadiness is signal. And the signal says, I am here. I am consistent. I am not rattled. That message travels fast. Women do not attach because a man tries harder. They attach because they feel better around him. Feeling better starts with feeling settled. That is why a man who understands emotional safety does not rush outcomes or force chemistry. He lets moments breathe. He allows silence to exist. He trusts his own pace. He knows attraction grows in space, not in pressure. This alone reshapes how to fall in love in a way most men never learn. When a woman relaxes, she opens. When she opens, attachment forms naturally, not through persuasion, but through presence. This is where most men miss the leverage. Presence is quiet. Ego wants noise, but presence signals reliability. Reliability is deeply attractive, especially to women who have experienced chaos and now value calm. Do not perform masculinity. Embody it. Do not explain your worth. Live it. Do not try to manage her emotions. Manage your own. That is the core of emotional safety. Modern psychology tricks support this clearly. Attraction deepens when a man regulates himself, not when he controls the environment. This is one of those psychology tricks that sounds simple but changes everything. When you stop reacting, when you stop chasing validation, when you stop filling every gap with words, you become predictable in the best way, not boring, trustworthy. And trust is not the enemy of desire. It is the gateway to it. That is why emotional safety often turns women on more than sex itself. Sex without safety is stimulation. Safety with attraction becomes intimacy. Intimacy is what bonds. This is not about being flawless. It is about being consistent, owning your emotions without dumping them. Standing firm without becoming rigid. That balance signals maturity instantly. Be the man who stays centered when things get emotional. Be the man who listens without collapsing or defending. Be the man whose energy says, you can relax here, because relaxation is where curiosity grows. Curiosity is how to fall in love without force. Emotional safety is not something you give by trying. It is something you radiate by being. Once you understand that, you stop asking what line to say and start focusing on who you are becoming. That shift rewires how women experience you, how conversations flow, and how attachment forms over time. This is why emotional safety is not a soft skill. It is a strategic one. Rooted in psychology tricks, aligned with female psychology, essential to understanding how to fall in love in a way that lasts. 8. Presence versus neediness. Presence versus neediness is where a lot of men lose leverage without realizing it. They hear the phrase emotional connection and swing hard in the wrong direction. They overshare, they overexplain, they unload stories too early, they confuse vulnerability with closeness. That mistake is costly. Emotional connection is not emotional dumping. Saying everything you feel does not automatically create intimacy. In fact, timing matters more than content. When a man trauma dumps early, texts constantly for reassurance, or needs a woman to stabilize his emotions, her nervous system tightens, not because she lacks empathy, but because her body senses pressure. She feels weight instead of warmth, obligation instead of desire. That reaction is not personal, it is biological. Do not argue with it, learn it. What women respond to is presence, emotional availability without emotional dependence. Calm strength at a nervous system level. Presence creates pull. Neediness creates pressure. That distinction matters if you want to attract women without forcing anything. A high-value man understands this instinctively, even if he has never read a single psychology book. He does not rush emotional closeness. He allows it to grow. He does not hand over his inner world like a receipt. He reveals it with pacing and intention. That is not secrecy. That is self-respect. Don't confuse being open with being uncontained. Being open means you can share when the moment calls for it. Being uncontained means emotions spill without structure. One builds attraction, the other creates tension. You must understand that masculine energy is not about volume or intensity. It is about regulation. It is about staying centered even when emotions are present. A man who can feel deeply without leaning emotionally on someone else sends a powerful signal. His presence says, I can hold myself. And that message is deeply attractive. Here's the part most men miss. Presence is felt more than it is heard. You don't need long explanations. You don't need constant check-ins. You don't need to prove interest through emotional labor. Be there. Listen. Respond thoughtfully. Then pause. Silence is not absence. Silence is confidence when used correctly. A man who is comfortable with space shows he trusts himself and the connection. That trust is contagious. It allows a woman to relax. Relaxation is where attraction grows. Neediness often shows up disguised as care. Excessive texting, fishing for reassurance, asking where you stand too early. None of this is wrong in isolation. The problem is frequency and motivation. If the behavior exists to soothe anxiety rather than express connection, it creates pressure. Pressure shuts desire down. Do not shame yourself for wanting closeness. Just be honest about where it's coming from. A high-value man notices his own internal state and stabilizes it before reaching outward. That is leadership at a relational level. Be clear on this. Emotional availability does not mean emotional outsourcing. You must be able to self-soothe. You must be able to sit with discomfort. You must be able to experience uncertainty without demanding immediate relief. That inner steadiness is masculine energy at its core. It does not push. It does not chase. It invites. An invitation is far more effective if you want to attract women who choose you freely rather than feel pulled by obligation. Presence also means you don't rush to fix or explain. You let moments land. You let conversations breathe. You allow curiosity to do the work. When a woman feels your grounded attention without being asked to carry your emotional weight, her system opens. She leans in naturally. That is not a trick. That is how human connection works when pressure is removed. This is why presence creates pull. It gives space for desire to move toward you. Don't perform vulnerability. Practice discernment. Share experiences, not emotional floods. Speak from reflection, not rawness. That is how depth is built over time. Be steady. Be consistent. Be emotionally available without becoming emotionally dependent. That balance is rare. That balance is powerful. And that balance is exactly what separates a man who tries to attract women from a man who naturally does. That is the quiet truth. Presence is not passive, it is active self mastery. And when you embody it, you stop asking how to get her attention. Attention finds you. If this resonated with you, like the video, comment below, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Subscribe for more psychology backed wisdom on attraction and confidence. Comment to remember I lead with calm presence, not neediness. 9. How real emotional bonding forms. Real emotional bonding, the kind that turns a woman on more than sex itself, is not a lucky personality trait, and it's not a bag of cheap psychology tricks. It is a trained skill rooted in presence, restraint, and identity. Science backs this up again and again. Attraction grows fastest when a man is fully grounded in himself while remaining emotionally available. Curiosity without an agenda activates trust. Trust is the gateway to desire. You don't ask questions to get a result. You ask because you genuinely want to know who she is. And when you respond, you don't mirror her words like a script. You reflect the emotion underneath them. That signals safety and intelligence at the same time. A rare combination in modern life, where most people are distracted, performative, and rushed. Neuroscience shows that shared emotional experiences create stronger memory and coding. That's why private jokes matter. Small rituals matter. Subtle routines matter. Memory creates meaning. Meaning creates attachment. Attachment fuels attraction far beyond physical chemistry. This aligns with Old Stoic wisdom, which teaches that connection grows from consistency of character, not emotional theatrics. As Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. The calm man who shows up the same way again and again becomes unforgettable. One of the biggest mistakes men make today is trying to fix emotions instead of holding space for them. Psychology research shows that feeling understood reduces stress more than receiving solutions. The man who can sit with discomfort without rushing to control it signals emotional leadership, not through force, through steadiness. Restraint communicates confidence and maturity in a world addicted to reaction. Performance creates pressure. Presence creates ease. Ease is deeply attractive. This is where iron mind discipline separates men who are merely liked from men who are desired. You don't abandon your center to create closeness. You don't over-explain. You don't chase reassurance. You stay grounded while allowing intimacy to develop naturally. That is why Stoicism principles resonate so strongly today. Clarity over chaos, self-command over emotional noise, calm over urgency. Modern relationships fail not because of a lack of chemistry, but because of a lack of emotional regulation. When you hold your frame without rigidity, listen without disappearing, and care without clinging, you create a psychological environment where desire can breathe. Viktor Frankl said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space." That space, your pause, your composure, your choice, is where attraction is born. Science confirms that emotional attunement activates the same reward circuits as physical intimacy. That's why women often describe feeling seen as more powerful than being touched. This is not theory. This is practice. Slow down your responses. Ask fewer but deeper questions. Notice patterns instead of chasing moments. Build shared meaning through experiences, not declarations. Never trade your self-respect for approval. Old Stoic wisdom teaches that a man who governs himself governs the moment. In modern life, where attention is fragmented and emotions are loud, the man with an iron mind stands out immediately. Not because he tries to impress, because he doesn't need to. This is Stoicism win in action. Attraction through stability, desire through depth, connection through calm. Remember this until it becomes instinct. Emotional bonding is built, not forced. Presence beats performance. Restraint amplifies attraction. Memory creates meaning. Meaning creates attachment. Stay centered. Stay curious. Stay grounded. You don't chase connection. You become the place where it naturally wants to stay. All right, before we wrap up, thanks for spending these minutes with me. I appreciate you. Here's the truth, said simply and clearly. Real attraction isn't loud. It doesn't need tricks, pressure, or performance. When a woman bonds with you, it's because she feels safe, calm, and at ease in your presence. Not excited for a moment, but settled in her nervous system. That's science, that's psychology, and that's why it lasts. So here's my sincere advice to you. Stop chasing intensity. Stop trying to impress or prove your value. Learn how to be grounded, be present, be emotionally steady. When you're the man who brings peace instead of pressure, connection instead of chaos, she doesn't just desire you, she chooses you. Remember this, sex may open the door, but emotional safety is what makes her stay. Be the man who feels like home, not a thrill that fades. See you in the next video. Stay calm, stay real.